Welcome back to class, everyone.
Oh God!
Whoa, what
I
was
am
that?
your host,
I don't like this.
What's your name?
Ethan,
And I'm your Professor Beans. That's right. I'm back with more beans, Ethan.
Yay.
I'm Ricky, and I made a bean chili today that would knock your socks off because I couldn't get enough from last week. Was it last week I had all those beans?
Dude, I don't ever remember your bean-related stories.
Dude, I've only ever had 2 now.
I'm just saying, it's a dangerous trend I'm noticing.
Kids, eat your beans. I ate 3 kind of beans today. And one of them was...
Lima?
Lima, actually.
Damn
Lima.
it.
Yeah, Lima. No, they're pinto, I believe they're called. Black beans and chile.
What was that? Black?
Black? Yeah, black beans. Black.
I don't think you're allowed to say it like that.
I am allowed to eat them like that, though.
Who's that third voice we hear there, mate?
I don't know, man. I think it's our guest and good friend and lover of anime, Cody.
Hi guys.
Hey. How you doing today, man?
I'm doing fantastic. How are you? I'm glad to be here.
Yes, it's glad to have you on. We've been actually wanting to get you on since day one because you have expressed extreme interest since you heard we were starting an anime podcast, and I remember just your first reaction.
Yeah, I'm not mad about how long it's taken. I'm not mad at all.
Yeah, I don't sense any
Alright,
bitterness.
When did you start listening to our show?
2 months ago when he gave me a bunch of shit for not having watched it yet.
Okay. So
Ethan is quite good at that.
It's just kind of funny that you're mad about not coming on the show sooner when you just now started listening.
Why do you think
2
it took me
months?
so long to not listen?
It doesn't make any sense.
But no, you guys gave me a bunch of shit for not finishing Promised Neverland.
Okay,
and then
fair enough.
I finished that and then listened to your episode. So
Perfect. And then
Very good.
you saw the chops of our PhDs, our degrees, if you will.
I don't know if I'd stretch it that much. But.
Well, I guess you and everybody else. But we kind of just wanted to pick your brain. We love having friends of the entire spectrum of the anime fandom on, noobs or veterans and everyone in between. Where did your anime viewing history begin? When was it that you started watching it, or maybe what show was first and you're like, oh, this is a medium I can get into?
It was probably the same for a lot of other people from our generation, which was when the big 3 were like really starting to build traction in the United States. So like I would watch Adult Swim and it would air like Naruto and Bleach and all that kind of stuff. And Naruto and Bleach were the first 2 I really got into. But it's funny because when I first watched Naruto, I thought it was so lame. But it was because I was watching the American version of it. So, like, they cut out all the blood, all the cussing. Like, they edited the shit out of it.
That is true.
And so, like, my friend was like, dude, like, the only reason you think it's lame is because you're not watching the legit version. So then I went and started to watch, like, the sub, like, just all online.
You crossed over to the other side.
And I was like, oh my God, this is fucking amazing, And then I could also binge and, like, watch the entire series. So
there was a 4 kids dub of Naruto?
Yeah. Well, it was dubbed for... America. I don't know if it was 4 kids necessarily, but
they just edited a lot out. Like I remember there would be fight scenes where in the actual anime they're getting punched and they're coughing up blood and shit like that, and in this it's like a little air poof,
Yes. You got to realize now, Ethan, you were right in the middle of a sub sandwich, dude. You got 2 sub lovers and you're that dub meat right in the middle. I mean, he is a dub boy. He is a proclaimed lover of dub. And there are many shows that I would argue that dub is fantastic.
I'd agree.
There are so few that it's the optimal choice, but there are many that you are not going to go wrong by choosing dub.
All right, I didn't want to bring this up now, but I have to.
Do it.
All of you people in the anime community are such gatekeepers for no reason.
Listen, we do joke.
What is this, master race garbage?
Gatekeeping sub versus dub is dumb.
Yeah.
But it is so funny to do anyway.
or if you're one of those manga people who like laugh at anyone that watches any type of anime, honestly, blow me, guys. Insane.
Shots fired.
He threw the proverbial dueling gauntlet down. Blow me, essentially.
There was this video recently, I think it's Long Beach Griffey.
Yeah.
He did he was basically the anime watcher and the manga guy. And the main guy would be like, ooh, something crazy is about to happen. Have you gotten to this part
I think
yet?
I've seen that video. It's pretty good.
And then he ends up saying, look, man, nobody cares that you're watching or that you're reading it. And he goes, fine. Well, this guy dies, and this guy dies, and this guy dies.
Okay,
this is the end. And
to
he
give
goes,
the
fuck you.
fuck you. To give the kingdom of dub some credence, what was the last show you watched, Cody, in dub that you're like, okay, this is pretty sweet?
I don't know if it was the last one I watched that was dubbed, but one that I always loved was Full Metal Brotherhood's dub. I love the English voice acting.
Edward, Elric, and Alphonse, their voices were pretty damn good.
Oh yeah,
and
I don't know if it's because I originally saw it when they were airing not Brotherhood but the other one on Adult Swim originally, and then when I went to watch Brotherhood, I just kind of stuck with it and never switched. So.
Right, that's cool. Yeah, I feel like older shows with dubs you can do because you're not going to get to a point where maybe a dub season 1 is existing, but like halfway through season 2 is dub of a 4-season show, and you already have like the audio visual connection, and then when the voices all change, you're like, these aren't my boys. What happened? What happened to all this? So there is merit to sub, but there is merit. Ethan's best case, I would actually agree, is when you want to do something else, you can't.
Yeah, exactly. And like. Really. But probably just for purely nostalgia's sake, I remember when Super was first airing and you could only watch it subbed, and I fucking hated it because I grew up watching DBZ like in English, and I love those voice actors. You gotta have
Chris Sabat.
Yeah, exactly. Mm-hmm. So that broke my heart, and I got used to it. But like when Broly came out, I watched it in English, and I loved it. Good.
I mean, and I remember watching Super with you actually when we used to live together, and it was kind of tough to watch it, with a high kind of stringy voice. And
when I first
you get used to it, you do.
When I first heard Goku and that it was an old woman, I was like, "What the fuck is this?" And people love that voice actor, so I'm not gonna talk shit, but I was really just like, "What the hell is this?" You know?
That's the same way people found out Ash Ketchum in English is a girl.
So is Naruto in English.
Get the fuck out.
Wait, no.
Yeah.
Yes.
He's an old lady too.
Oh shit.
Dude, are we saying that these old ladies out here are just taking over the anime voice acting game? Like, it doesn't matter the language, it's just old ladies out here getting after it.
Damn.
Respect to, hey, hashtag do it for the old ladies. That's what we're out here doing.
Fuck our ageism, damn.
Well, I think it's probably more that their voice isn't going to change, right?
Right.
If you're casting a young guy, the voice will change, right? But I think that might do well for like a Shippuden, now he's older.
And you now have an older voice actor who used to do it, so I'm into that.
Well, maybe like if they're 13, those cracks in the... Rasengan! Shadow Clone
water bullets.
This is the other thing I remember from the Naruto dub. He would say, "Believe it," every fucking sentence, and it drove me nuts.
it's like from Past On Memories. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's actually funny. So he said "believe it" a ton in the English dub, but he never said
Yeah, which is
they made that such a big deal at the end of Shippuden. Where he'd say like every sentence, and I'm like, where the fuck did this come from?
Mm-hmm, yeah,
because I watched it in dub as well, or at least parts of it. I've watched it like 100 times. It doesn't matter.
That's fair.
I couldn't figure out why this meant he was definitely from Kushina's family and all this stuff, right? Mm-hmm. And then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I probably said that a lot in the sub and replaced it with "believe it."
yeah, exactly.
It's true. So what shows are you currently watching right now? Are you very avid in the seasonal space? Do you find yourself just going back to classics you Mitch? How do you watch anime in the present day?
Inconsistently.
Okay. Fair enough.
I sort of drift away from it and then come back a lot, and so I'm now at that stage where I'm sort of drifting back into it. So I'm definitely not like a seasonal anime watcher. A lot of times I will, I might watch like Gigguk or like Mother's Basement and then like take some of their suggestions and then try a few things out,
That's a lot of people do that same thing. I feel that.
So I'd rather listen to them than wade through a bunch of shit, which is really just my laziness. But as far as shows right now, one show in particular I'm really loving, I was telling you about this the other night, Ricky, is Babylon. I feel like not a lot of people know about it, maybe just because it's on Amazon Prime. And
that's a common thing.
Yeah, and it's essentially it's like a crime thriller.
Give it to the people. Give it a pitch.
So, I know about it actually.
Ethan's a dictionary for anime.
And do you know how?
How?
Our good friends over at the Anime Compost are doing You're Stuck With It. And Susie's anime is Babylon.
Nice.
Yeah, not I was gonna say, but nice plug. So
Yeah.
but no, so it's a anime like crime thriller basically, and it starts off with what seems like a really mundane case. You have this like prosecutor, and I think he's like the Japanese government, and his like mentee basically,
Gotcha.
His partner, and they like it's like raiding like a medical facility that's been doing some like white collar crime, you know. But then like pretty quickly, and it's like hard to talk about the show without like spoiling anything, because shit like hits the fan in the first episode, you know. It's kind of like how you pitched Promise Neverland to me, how, you know, the 3-episode rule, no, you're in after the first episode, like the ending of the first episode, you're gonna be bought in. But what I can say without spoiling anything is that it in a lot of ways it is a very grounded show, but it has this sort of like theme of the occult in it. And there's one character in particular where every time they're involved, you're like, what the fuck is going on? How are you doing this right now?
Okay.
And the other thing I love about it is the animation, because, you know, you don't have these crazy fight scenes, but the animation is so subtle. Like the thing I can point to that I think is the best example is episode 3. It centers around an interrogation, an interview essentially. And the way they animate subtle movements of eyes and fingers and ticks, and they say so much with so little happening on screen, and it's so cool.
Do you feel that animation like that translates a little too much to the audience, or is it translating exactly what it needs to? It's like think of like a bad video game, like you know, press X to doubt in like in Noir, LA Noir, where the first faces are like,
wait,
is he lying?
Bad video game?
I mean, the facial stuff. There's like, is this guy lying to you? And he goes.
So I loved that game when it came out, because I thought it was going to be executed correctly. And when it wasn't, I was like, damn, that sucks.
So that's what I'm saying.
It's like, that's a very cool, like...
It was bleeding edge, too, when they were doing it.
It's a cool game philosophy, gamification of, like, figure out if this guy's lying just by, like, watching... Because they always say, like, nonverbal is, like, 80% of communication.
Subconscious, but yeah,
right.
Exactly.
So, and I totally agree with that. I mean, I think when you see somebody go, like, they're telling you something, but they look like they're pissed, they're probably pissed. You know what I mean?
They're probably pissed. So you're saying that Babylon does a good job of showing you these subtle ticks that aren't like, okay, this guy, like, it's clear that this guy's shitty. It's clear that this person's lying.
That's the thing. It's not obvious. Like like the episode I'm referring to for particular, there's several moments where the character will do something like there. I remember there's one shot where you're seeing from the character's perspective, and they're looking at something and it goes out of focus as they focus on something else. And in that moment, you're like, why the fuck are they doing that? Like, they're looking at a person, but then the person goes out of focus, and then they're looking at like a fly at a vent, and you're like, oh, this person's kind of crazy, you know? Like, but you don't really know exactly what's going on. So that's more so what I mean.
Okay, I'm into it. I looked up the rating. It's a 7.21. That's pretty solid. Do you know when it came out? Oh.
I think it started airing like in the fall, so probably around November or October.
Cool.
And then they took a little bit of a break around the new year. And so I think because I think it's episode 7, like a bombshell drops, and then like they just stop for like a few weeks, and then they started it back up. And so
that's sinister, dude.
Oh,
like,
dude,
drop the bomb and then just like go radio silent for like a month. And just
I was
be like
freaking out.
Wait, just to confirm, this is the show where they're trying to make like suicide legal, correct?
Yes, that is exactly what it is.
Whoa, that's crazy. All right, guess I got a new show on the list now. Damn. All right, that's a hell of a pitch. I mean, we like to practice pitches on this show so we could, you know, sell friends and fam on certain shows, and you pitch to the right audience. It sounds like a signing. It sounds like kind of psych thriller. I'm into it.
I'll consider us both pitched.
Awesome.
Yeah, consider us pitched.
I could pitch you a show too, but it's 50 episodes. Thoughts?
I'd actually be willing to invest. Like, I was telling Ricky, I just finished the first season of Fire Force, which I think me and him are both kind of lukewarm on.
We talked about
lukewarm,
it.
Maybe tepid. You know,
tepid. I love it.
But that was 25 episodes, and like 50 doesn't daunt me. Like I can sink some time into it. So
what about you?
Oh yeah, sell me on a 50.
I'll literally pitch you right now, motherfuckers.
You're gonna pitch me? Well, I
Thoughts?
did. Sure, pitch at me, dude.
Okay, guys. Kenichi, the Mightiest Disciple. Have you heard of it?
Yes, I have.
Not.
Have you watched it?
No.
Great. Perfect. So, I'm pitching you now, and we've just changed some of the show.
Fine, pitch it away, baby.
Okay, so, Kenichi, the Mightiest Disciple.
Okay.
This is a show, obviously 50 episodes. It's a little bit older, though. I don't know the exact date because I did not prepare for this. But, it's basically this kid named Kenichi who meets this girl named Miyu Furinji.
Okay.
And she's gorgeous, obviously. And they're like in
else?
high school, middle school, something like that. And he sees her like from across, you know, those little like aqueducts that are all over Japan, like the river that goes through, and there's two like paths on either side.
Right.
Well, she leaps the entire thing in one shot, and that's how he first notices her.
All right.
And he's like, "Yo, what the hell?"
Into it.
And basically, they get into something where they're both late for school because of he like tried to follow her or something and falls in the water, yada yada. So basically, he's now like completely enthralled with this girl, and he finds out that she lives at this place called Ryozanpaku, or no, fuck.
Ryozanpaku, yeah.
Don't look at him. He just said it.
Ryozanpaku, which is like a martial arts dojo.
Okay.
That her grandfather is the proprietor of.
Okay.
And there is 7-ish masters. I'm literally pitching off the top of my head, so this is a little bit tougher.
Pitching off the rip,
right off the
dome.
I think there's 6 or 7 masters that
if you don't get this perfectly right, consider it ditched. Consider it ditched.
Okay.
you don't have to nail it. You already pitched it. You had it there, and you're starting to fumble, my dude.
Ricky's panicking. Let's fill the space.
You're crumbling.
Oh no!
So how about the beans, Cody?
Dude, the beans were so good.
Did you really? I actually never got
two.
I never got a thing about the beans,
dude. See, if it had only been 2 beans, maybe I wouldn't have liked it.
I went for the 3 beans.
But that third bean,
yeah,
fucking made it.
I replaced 1 can of black beans with chili beans.
Oh my god.
With kidney beans.
You mad genius.
Thank you.
Okay, yeah. So there's
the people at home know I know my beans.
There's 7 senseis.
Oh look, he's back.
And they all have a different martial art that they are the master of. There's like a badass looking karate guy.
Please tell me one's bean fu. I'm sorry. I'm done. I'm done.
There's Chinese Kimpo. There's
okay,
like
that's dope.
Ninjutsu.
Right.
There's what's the Thai sport? Muay Thai, I guess.
Yeah.
Apachow is that guy? He goes
Apachow. It's like jiu-jitsu
anyway,
in there
so
somewhere? That'd be dope.
Actually, yes. Funny enough.
Yes.
Akisame. So the story is Kenichi is this major bitch, like a complete loser.
Into it,
but he really, really, really wants to become stronger so he can protect his friends and family and stuff like that.
Shonen 101, baby.
But he also had already seen Miyu kick the living shit out of somebody. So he knows she's unbelievably strong. Okay. So he follows her one day and he says, "Will you take me in and basically teach me how to be a martial artist?"
Unbitchify me.
Yeah.
Literally, yes.
De-wimp me, please.
Okay, what's great about Kenichi, though, is he's like the hardest worker out of any anime pro tag that exists.
That's a really bold claim.
Yeah, big claim.
I know. Like 10 times Asta.
Fuck you.
I know.
Cordially go fuck yourself.
I know. Hey,
okay. Yeah. All
you're
right.
gonna have to watch it to prove me wrong.
Yeah.
So because they're all like grand masters, essentially, right, of their each individual martial art, it's like insane training in each of these different arts.
Interesting.
So like the main trainer is Akisame, and he's like basically world famous artist, martial artist, like all these things, and his training is like legitimately like death-defyingly hard.
I can see this show not getting old because of how many styles that they're incorporating.
Yeah. Yes.
I can see that now. Like basically anytime anything's about to get stale, he can have like a shonen pro tag bump and then on to the next thing.
I was gonna say it's a natural way to escalate without the power becoming ridiculous.
Yeah,
right. But the great thing is, you know, in Durarara, how there's like this gang situation going on outside, like sort of in the plot and sort of outside the plot.
It's kind of all happening.
Literally the same thing.
Oh,
there's this gang who finds out that he's training in martial arts and decides they want this guy.
They want to
They
have
want
him.
to kick his ass.
They want to kick his ass. Okay.
And so he's having to fend off all these attacks from this gang as he's learning different martial arts from these masters.
Plot twist: the masters are paying them for practical exams. Is what's happening right now.
I'm not going to answer that one way or the other.
Oh,
come on!
Oh, maybe I can guess it. But okay,
I said one way or the other.
Okay, that went from a pitch to maybe a ditch to a hard pitch.
Yeah.
You brought it home.
You
really brought it home.
I got more
when was
invested
it a ditch?
Well, I got more invested in the beans for a moment, but
Yeah.
then after you came back,
that's fair enough.
I got pitched.
And I said cordially, fuck you, but maybe I might have to eat my words with a side of corn.
God damn it.
Right.
What do you think I was going to say?
All right, guys. I think this is
So
it for us.
if only you were some way to read my mind, Cody and Ethan. If you had psychic powers, as it were. Because today, we're actually talking about one of our collective favorite shows of last year.
So good.
Like I said, it's my, I think, 6th favorite of last year.
It was my 4th. And Cody, where would you put the show before we say it in a ranking of last year?
It might be my 1, but I haven't watched nearly as much as you guys.
Fair.
I mean, keep that in mind. There's a lot I haven't seen that y'all
There
have.
is merit.
Don't judge me, Ethan.
There is merit to put it as number 1, and that show is Mob Psycho 100,
Season
specifically
2.
Season 2.
Yes.
So,
No, Roman numeral 2.
so Cody, would you do us the honors of giving the viewers, the listeners, just kind of a 10,000-foot overview of the show as a whole? What are we talking about here? What is this?
So if you're at all familiar with One Punch Man, it comes from the same creator, and the basic premise is similar in that you have a ridiculously overpowered protagonist. He is just, he can obliterate anyone in front of him without blinking an eye. And of course, naturally, you're thinking that's boring as hell. But unlike Saitama, who he sort of like is ridiculously bored and hates it, Mob, he doesn't hate it, but he's looking for another way to fulfill his life, basically. And he's not trying to use his powers like to make himself better or to like take advantage of people. Like he's more focused on like getting girls, and he's your typical middle schooler, you know. He wants to be popular, like he wants to date, and so the show follows him and sort of has this underlying message of like you're
Getting
not
girls.
Underlying message of slay and lay, my dudes. Do it.
But the underlying message is basically like you're not special, you know. Like
Yes.
every single person that Mob comes into, particularly the villains, they think they are.
special.
They think they're the main character of the story, and some of them literally say that in the show over and over again.
Exactly.
And after facing Mob, they realize, oh, I'm average, I'm normal in light of this immense power.
I think it's important that you did bring up One Punch Man as being another one of one's most famous works, because I think what makes Mob a much better protagonist in my eyes than Saitama is because Saitama forwent all sense of humanity because he just got that strong.
Yeah.
He's just like, I don't need fear, I don't need this, I don't need that. Where Mob is like, no, I want to achieve the things that if I were to use my power, I'd probably just get and then become a Saitama, essentially. I'd become that. I would just be at the summit, but he climbs a different mountain. He's just like, nope, no, I'm not going to use my powers, but...
And I don't know what the significance of this is. I didn't think about this now, but it is interesting that Mob has his powers like from birth, basically. Like from the time he is a small child, he has these abilities.
He's known nothing but godhood, essentially.
Whereas Saitama, he gets them later in life, where he's sort of at like an impasse, like an existential crisis in his life. So I wonder if that at all has like
He did
is
the
tied
work.
to their character.
He
you
did
know?
the work, and then now he's like, oh shit, I did the work, and now what?
Yeah,
I did the work that Mob
exactly.
is trying to do. Now what do I do? But yeah,
I think they're both similar characters in that, like, after Saitama reaches the peak, he's kind of bored with it, right? And I think Mob, in a lot of ways, mirrors that in that he, not that he's bored of it, but it's just that he doesn't want to rely on specifically that. And, like, it's basically they both want to look away from their powers once they have them. It just so happens that Mob attained them at birth and Saitama worked for them.
I think it's... I read a couple forums about the comparison of these main characters, and I think what's great about Season 2 is it goes into the character development way more than Season 1 did.
Oh, yeah.
And I think Season 1 of both shows, One Punch Man and Mob Psycho, it was basically banking on the novelty of the premise, right? Is that basically you have a guy who can defeat anything in one punch. You have a telekinetic god in a world of telekinetic folk. Let's let that stuff just play out and see what happens. Season 2 of both shows had to make a choice. One Punch Man went with the plot. Mob Psycho 100 went with the character development, in my opinion, because the plot really didn't change. Ethan, did it? I mean, there's still the villains. There's still Claw. There's still an evil organization trying to take over the world, and there was a resistance to stop them. That really didn't change.
I just think the focus was more on what you're saying, character development, rather than that struggle within the world.
Exactly.
Yeah, and something I think is interesting too, particularly about Mob, is that the first season was essentially eclipsed by One Punch Man. You know, like they came out around the same time, but One Punch Man was a phenomenon at the time. And maybe I don't know how much more popular Mob was like in the East, but at least in the United States, I feel like it didn't have the same traction. I didn't know about it till you told me about it, Ricky.
It was a sleeper season 1 for damn sure, but you know, being a Sakuga schmuck, I mean, I love animation, weird animation styles and fluid animation styles, and Yoshimichi Kamada is the guy who did the animation and was the art director for this, and he animated actually the One Punch Man scene with the subterraneans in his dream.
Oh,
that
God.
whole fight was this guy who did both seasons was at least the art director of both seasons.
I can totally see that.
So, I mean, this, for me, if we're going to talk about animation, this was number 1 of the year for me.
Oh, it was incredible.
Wow.
State your case, Ethan. What was your top animated show of 2019? Animation only.
Maybe Kimetsu no Yaiba then.
Yeah, that's a number 2 for me. That's a number 2. That's a number 2. That was pretty. But Ufotable's always had like
I know it's just like you were very like sure that I was gonna say something stupid. You're gonna tell me that's not
damn it.
Yeah,
he called my bluff.
He's like, you don't have an argument.
You're about to fucking say.
Like, here we go. I was gonna say Vinland Saga, which I think also could be in that talks.
I mean, it does have some.
It was beautiful to look at.
The reason I say that is I think it's a weird style, like you said, for Mob Psycho, but I think it's also understated. Like, it's supposed to look kind of dorky, just like One Punch Man.
Oh, yeah.
And like,
especially the characters.
Yeah. I mean, they look dumpy, and they've got, like, you know, a shirt that says Opie with boobs and shit on it.
Yes.
You know? It's just like, it's that kind of show where it's like, they're both kind of, they're not, I guess they're similar in some regards, but they're both kind of like sarcastic in a lot of ways. He like advertises for his other show in that show.
Yeah, he does.
One Punch is in the opening in Reigan's cell phone background. Like,
that's pretty rad. But if you look at one's original web comics, like the OGs, that is the Mob Psycho 100 style. That's what he was never he was an okay artist. He was never a good artist, but he was a fantastic storyteller. That's what one has got going for him. But if you look at all the character designs in Mob, that's what all One Punch Man and Mob Psycho look like on his panels. So they were like, you know what? True homage to his stuff. And I loved it. I love it because watching anime, hundreds and hundreds of shows, you're going to start to see like everything kind of looks a little milquetoast. If you keep to the same style, give me something fresh. Give me a fresh style.
Well, I don't know about season 1, but I know season 2, the animation director, he basically was talking about, I read an interview, and he was saying how he gave a lot of free reign to his people, basically. Like, he was there to sort of make sure it met the quality and the overall tone of the show. But that's why, like, you see so many different kinds of animation in a fight scene. I mean, they'll switch animation styles in the middle of a fight, in the middle of a joke, you know, to make the joke land harder and stuff. That's why it was so impressive to me, was that you're doing things that could clash so easily, but you're somehow making them meld and making them greater than what they would be on their own.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think best example was that episode 5 fight against, what was his name again?
Mogami.
Mogami.
Yeah.
Basically, the setup is that this super crazy psychic had inhabited a girl, right?
Yes.
Was it girl?
It was like a popular girl, yeah.
Popular girl, and all these other psychics came in, while not necessarily fake, just very interestingly weak compared to Mob, where to the point where they almost feel like frauds.
Yeah, and they have that same attitude that the villains have, where they think they're so great. They like have this crazy inflated ego of what their power is.
Hell yeah. And then Mob just easily just gets on in there, and maybe 4 different animation styles within one, like 2
if not more.
episodes.
I mean,
beautifully done. But yeah, so animation, Ethan's clear top 1. It's great. It's great that Ethan really sees my point now. It's
look, I like animation, but I think people get way up their own ass about it, and in some cases, including you,
consider me up, dude. Consider me up there, because for sure. Like, why wouldn't I?
Well, it's just like I don't think it does not, in my opinion, make a bad show if they're not like dumping millions of dollars into straight up like the animation of the fight.
Of course not.
I
but
agree.
It can elevate an otherwise mad show.
I totally agree. It can elevate.
It can elevate way more than it can.
To me, it is an addition and not a subtraction.
Right. Yeah. But no, what you're saying, because that's what I felt with Fire Force. I was like, this is a beautiful show for the most part.
Yes.
But
thank you.
Is like, it doesn't make the writing better. It doesn't make the plot better. It doesn't make it feel less rushed.
We talked about that. Like, I still felt it fizzled. It didn't do anything for me at the end. I didn't feel anything.
They didn't do anything to make you care about the characters. Like that's one thing Mob does incredibly, because the first season, you're really like, the dichotomy I see between the two seasons in the first season is that you're really getting to know Mob's personality. You're getting to know some of these other characters, but like Mob's the main focus. The second season, the focus is his connections with other people. And that's the message that I love about this season, is that the only way that you build real value and real self-worth and make your life have purpose is through your connections with other people. That's something that I truly believe, and that's something that I think is a beautiful message for an anime and any show to have, That's great
and that's why the final boss in that show was so good. Torchiro?
Yes.
Was because he, at the end of the day, what?
His name was Torchiro?
I think Torchiro?
I don't know if it's
Torchiro. No, what is it, Ethan? What's his name?
I don't know, but
I don't want to hear it from you, Ethan. I don't want to hear it.
My phone is recording the video. You have one next to you. This is unbelievable.
It is Toichiro Suzuki, yes.
Totoro?
No, Toichiro.
Toichiro. Yeah.
Toichiro.
Whatever. Yeah. I'm fine. Hey, we're not linguistas.
Torture me.
Well, Daddy Suzuki essentially is he, at the end of the day, even his own son, like, he doesn't give a fuck about his own son. And he doesn't give a fuck about anybody. That's really the thing.
You know what character that reminded me of?
Who?
So you remember the principal from Assassination Classroom?
Yes.
They're like identical characters.
I guess they are.
They both have prodigy sons that they basically like treat like garbage trash
and basically experiment with. Essentially. Right. Yeah.
And they both are like very smart, very intellectually gifted, and like the strongest in the series.
Yeah.
That's a good point. It's a good archetype to have.
I have to rewatch that show, but I never would have made that.
Hey, don't worry about it. I'm right.
You guess you're in Ethan's classroom now. But no, that's so good, because Mob and Daddy Suzuki, if that works for you.
No, it really does.
It's actually way better.
Yeah, Mob and Daddy Suzuki basically have a clash, but it isn't just with their psychic powers. No one's been able to keep up with Suzuki this entire time. So I don't know what. So basically, they're having like a clash of ideologies.
Yes.
At the end of the day, is
exactly.
that you thought you had power because you kind of elevated yourself away from people, but that's not. At the end, you're about to explode.
That's your weakness.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's your weakness. Yeah. So
I mean, that really was the crux of the show, right? Like the differing ideologies that each of these like psychic groups had. I don't know how I lost the word psychic.
See, we're not linguistas, and Ethan has proven it.
Oh, ow.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've had a tough day at work, guys.
It's okay.
Ethan, do you need to talk?
Yeah, long. Hey, dude, we can just whip out the beans again, man. It's cool. We can just have a chat.
How did you use that to bring in the beans again?
I'm always
Ethan. I'm trying to get on your side.
Thank
of the beans. It's getting a little much.
Oh no, I'll let it slide for now. But they're coming back at some point. I'm never gonna say when. I don't ever say when. Maybe next.
I'm just
episode.
gonna edit every mention of beans out.
Fine. What can you replace it with? Just Mob. I ate 3 types of Mob today.
I guess I'd rather not.
Chili Mob.
No, but yeah, I mean, it is a definite, and that's what I think I liked about this season more than season 1. Like, I did like season 1, but it wasn't like, to me, as monolithic as a lot of people definitely put it in there. Like, at the time, everyone was saying it was like, oh, this is a monolithic like great show. Like, it is a singularly great show of this decade type situation. And I know that a lot of people after season 2 think that this is like in their top 5 of the decade, maybe of all time for a lot of people. I still am not there, but I do like specifically the ideology like clash in this season versus last season. Like you're saying, last season it was like all from Mob's perspective, and it was basically like external factors were coming after him, sort of, that's how I kind of viewed it.
Yeah.
And then this season is more like Mob is trying to affect change on a grander scale through ideology rather than just through like basically staving off a crisis with his power.
No, I 100% agree with that. Like, and I think like the OPs actually illustrate this pretty well, because in the first OP there's one part where Mob, he's kind of losing it, and he's by himself and he's tearing the city up. But then in the OP for the second season, they reverse that where it's him, but he's actually bringing the city back together, rebuilding it with his friends around him. And it's this idea that in the first season, he's just defensive and reactionary. He's still figuring out who he is, what he wants. He doesn't know what it is, so he doesn't want to voice it yet. So he's just fighting back as it comes to him. Whereas in this season, he's much more building a life for himself and trying to, not only is the show saying something, but he's trying to say something, which you didn't really get in the first season at all.
I think it's great too, because that idea of Mob being reactionary and suppressed is a very consequential tie-in to the power crux of the show, where his emotions were tied to this unfathomably deep power that, if you notice, every single emotion actually had a very specific power. Sadness had almost time reversal. Like animosity just had sheer crazy power. Happiness and gratitude allowed him to transfer power to other people.
Is this the first season he's talking about?
So this is like the first season.
Okay, I don't remember it. Barely any of it. So I was really confused.
Every time he had a certain emotion, his power manifested in a different way.
Great.
But it was all unimaginably powerful. So his emotional repression was a reaction to said power, not as a consequence of it, like in Saitama's case, One Punch Man. In season 2, what makes it brilliant is that those connections are how he can manifest power without danger. Strangely enough, right?
Well, like in the final fight, there's a beautiful moment where, you know, the reason Daddy Suzuki, I was trying to say that with a straight face.
Yeah.
Daddy Suzuki, the reason he loses control in the end is because of his lack of connection. It's because he's relied on himself too much. The only reason Mob, because if you remember in that fight, Mob almost loses it. Like when he first starts to fight Suzuki, he loves that he's able to let loose for the first time.
He's like laughing maniacally, like going crazy.
But then he sees his brother, like the fear on his brother, and then he remembers the reason why he suppressed his powers, because he hurt his brother as a child, and that's the only reason he's able to control himself. And in the end, the only reason he's able to win is because he has that moment where he's like getting obliterated and he thinks, I'm going to die, but then he remembers all the people he cares about, and he's like, no, like this is nothing compared to what it would be to lose the things I care about.
Right. And in a lot of other cases, that'd be some kind of basic ass shonen protagonist bullshit, right? That would kind of...
It could be, yes.
But in this context, it almost feels more than warranted. It feels satisfying.
No, it feels like it's been earned.
That's rare to find in a shonen protagonist that, oh, I gotta protect my friends, doesn't feel like a trope.
Well, and it's because
it feels properly placed.
Because I think it's like, because the message of the show is deeper than that. Because there's one scene I love where it's near the end and he's fighting some like bitch ass sidekicks, and he
bitch ass. Oh, is it the one where he basically thinks, I don't want to spoil anything if we can, but he goes into the city and basically drops in front of those crazy,
and he pulls a can, he like stops them from like destroying a shop basically, and he's like, look at this can, like you couldn't produce this can. He's like, could you repair the glass that you just broke? It's like the only like the whole idea is that the only reason you can survive is because of other people, you know, and that I think that's ultimately the deeper message that really matters.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
that's a good message. Is there things in this show you didn't like? There, you know, no show is perfect, but you know, as much as like the hype shows up that we really do love, it's not always perfect. I would like to have seen, as much as I love Reigan as a character, I even say it in my top 5 video, that he does go through positive character development, but in the end he's still shady as fuck. Like in the end he's still a shady dude. I would love to have seen him be like a little more wholesome in the end. I don't know.
There's a couple things I didn't like.
Hit me.
So I thought the first episode was Garbaggio. of this season. It's like that fucking plant demon thing. Ghost.
It looked pretty
that's
cool.
the opening fight. Yeah,
it looked pretty cool.
It was cool, but like the fight was. But I was like, I felt jarred from the end of last season to this season. I'm like, what's happening?
You watched it right in a row, didn't you?
No.
So you did have a
very
skip.
large time skip.
Okay, so
but still, I was like, how does this continue on at all? Like, it was just very in the fucking action already instead of like,
gotcha.
Normally I hate when they're like give you the summary of what happened in the last season and kind of catch you up to speed. But like, I felt like the end of last season was fairly finite. And then this season, they just like threw you into the middle of like a weekly pace or something that they're going through.
Shit. Yeah.
And I was just like, what the fuck does it? I actually had to check to make sure I was like not in the middle of the season.
Yeah.
I swear, I literally looked and I'm like, did I click the wrong button? Like, I'm really lost.
I think that scene in particular, that's a good point. The thing I did like about the first episode is that it feels like it does a good job of initiating Mob's growth throughout the season. When he has that girlfriend that's not really his girlfriend, like and she says that thing of basically like, you don't seem like you have your own opinion. You don't seem like you have your own voice. And that's what makes him realize, I do have my own voice. And that's when he saves her poem or book or whatever she's been writing.
And she's like, oh my goodness.
Oh my God.
Sploosh, you have
Lady
psychic
boner.
power.
Sploosh.
So yes, I liked her addition to the season. I did not like that went nowhere.
Yeah, you're right. She never comes back. You're right.
After the whole poem ripping thing, like,
you don't see her again, I don't
literally
think.
nothing. And I'm like, okay, that to me seemed like a very large, like, outside of his normal friend group kind of person to, like, him to reach out, right? That was, like, the first time he'd really reached out outside of, like, his school friend group. And it was, like, basically unrequited in all respects, even though, like, you could tell she obviously appreciated it, but she still kind of just went along with her jerky-ass friends, right? And to me, I was like, that... I think it's telling in a lot of ways with, like, if you're in Mob's situation where you're, like, socially inept and, like, you think, oh, maybe if I just reach out, everything will work out. It doesn't always work out. And I think that's a very real, like, possibility that you would go out on a limb and get, like, rejected or in some way. But I think, like, the fact that she never came back later and was like, hey, I really appreciate that you did that. Like, to me, that was just, like, a big miss. Now, it could be because the pacing had to, like, really condense because they were, like, basically going to war.
Pretty much.
Like, that was, like, world war type situation. But I felt like they're relying very heavily on the emotional growth and basically confidence build that Mob has been undergoing since he joined the Body Improvement Club, basically, right? And for them to not, like, circle back and, like, have her, like, say, hey, thank you for, believing in me, which would be, like, big for him because he's been waiting for people to believe in him.
Yeah.
And, like, say, yes, I've done something good other than, blow up a town with my psychic abilities.
I'm glad you said that, though, and I'm glad you're making points because, like, I think I was so blinded by how much I loved the show. I don't really, like, I can't think of criticism off the top of my head right now, but what you just said made me think about the popular girl that he saves from Mogami.
Yes.
Because, like, when he's in Mogami's, or when he's in the girl's head, and he, essentially, if you haven't seen it, he's put in this world where his memories are erased. It's a fictional world, like, in his head, like a dream. And he has to relive his life, but without his powers and without his friends. And so the Mogami's trying to beat him down so that he becomes evil, essentially.
Right.
And the girl is, like, one of the main, like, bullies in this dream world. And when he saves her, he finds out that was actually her. Like, that was her personality in this world being an asshole. And then she, like, breaks down in tears and apologizes. And then at the end, she's with her dad and like at the hospital and, like, kind of like looking out the window like, oh, he's so cool. But then you never see her again either. And that you don't feel like that emotional thread sticks with the rest of the story.
Yeah, and I actually sat and thought about that one too. And I think it actually comes back to also what Ethan said there in like some criticisms is that
Ethan, goddammit.
Just get off your highest horse. No, but seriously,
what was that? I can't hear you from up here.
Sometimes in life, you, like, for both good and bad, you may not get recognition for the things you do, that are right, but to Mob, that doesn't matter. To Mob, he helped someone, he stuck a limb out, and he helped somebody. And he found out, oh, my powers can be used to help. So at the end, I think it's beautiful that Mob didn't necessarily seek out, hey, where's my thank you, dude?
Well, of course, but I'm saying, like, this is supposed to be a show where you're seeing somebody grow and you're seeing them get the recognition they deserve. In my opinion, I don't think it's supposed to be a show where I honestly think they forgot about those two instances near the end just because of all the stuff that was going on at the end. I don't think they meant to not have that loop back in.
No, I would agree. But part of me also wonders, like, maybe they come back in later seasons, Like,
is there more seasons?
I think this is it.
Well, I know that the manga keeps going.
Does it really?
Yes.
So there might be more seasons.
I am sincerely hoping so. I don't know.
It feels like a clean break, though, right?
I mean, it definitely could be, but like you said, that's how the first season felt. I mean, they could have ended the first season and not kept it going, and it would have been fine, Yeah. Which is honestly one of the things I also love about the show, that they have these stories that do have an overarching theme and message, but that sort of can stand alone.
Really tight arcs.
Oh,
seriously. Speaking of things that don't go anywhere, can we talk about the Psycho Helmet religion real quick?
Oh my god!
Because whatever happened to that?
No, that's a really good point.
That is one through line I wish I got to see the end of. That, like, Mob gets treated like a god. That would have been so awesome.
They're brought up like 3 times.
Yes, but every time they're brought up, and isn't it the girl's wealth that she donates to the religion to build?
Yes, it is.
The religion?
Yes, she donates money to the church. You're right.
Yes, and that's how they have this massive temple and, like, at least 1,000 some followers, all trying to find out who the fuck this Psycho Helmet dude is. He's their god, and then nothing. And I think, again, back to it's because of all the world-threatening craziness that these two warring sides are having in this massive psychic battle. So I really hope there's a season 3 where there's a through line that Mob basically gets thrusted in as a child god.
So, like, if there isn't, this was a, like, very big miss in my opinion.
Yeah, this would have been cool to explore.
Because they also wasted so much time on all these events to not show any like growth from it. Like, I think you see some growth, like you're saying, like we were saying, where Mob is reaching out in some situations, right?
Yeah. And
I agree, those were good additions to the show. I just was not a fan of how they just dropped it. But, like, something like that, they're spending so much time on this stupid fucking religion thing.
I agree with that.
And it's like, are you, like, if you do something with it, that'd be okay.
My hunch is they will, only because we have evidence prior that they do.
Literally 3 minutes ago, we both thought that this was the end of the
I know, but now I realize the manga keeps going, so there is much more possibility for season 3. But if you remember in season 1, where they talked about Claw as an organization, they had a throwaway line that says, oh yeah, we're the 7th division. Oh, so there's more divisions. There is a bigger head than you.
Right.
And basically they explored on that in full in season 2. So here's the hoping for season 3 that we cut back to this basically maybe an international religion over just one kid, which is shocking. They can't find him, right? You would think, right?
Yeah,
They have a literal.
Their drawing is pretty spot on.
They have a core of people willing and able with religious fanaticism to find one kid.
And it's also like, how do people not know about Mob's powers? He's destroying entire cities, throwing a ball of skyscrapers at a guy.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
how is that not more well
He also,
known?
like,
plot convenience.
was flying around in the schoolyard with the kid in the last.
Yeah.
So, like, it's pretty ridiculous. Unless he's doing, like, some Men in Black,
like mind erasure or something.
mind erase type situation.
Yeah.
Which I don't think he is, because they have not made any, like, overtures
some
to
psychic shit
show
right
that.
there. Yeah. Interesting.
I was gonna say some things I did like about it. If you're okay with that.
I am very.
I mean, well, if you've got more stuff that you didn't like, feel free right now before I go in and start saying some good stuff.
No, this show is magic money, straight up liquid gold.
Yeah. Fine, I'll say some more stuff I didn't like. So you actually had cited the basically dream world in the 5th episode where he's fighting that, like. First of all, I was not very clear on what the hell the deal was with that guy.
He was a powerful psychic that purposely turned himself into an evil spirit by like he basically was a huge asshole at the end of his life, so that he would become an evil spirit. So he was a super powerful evil spirit.
What was the reason?
And he was like
an
eating
asshole?
other evil spirits, right?
Yeah, I think he was like consuming their power. The reason he was an asshole was because he was like broke and like basically he didn't get anything for his power, and then his mom died, I think. And like, and she blamed him for her death, and like
you're right.
Yeah.
This guy got savagely beaten by society.
Yeah,
and he's just like, screw it, power's time. Glow up. I wouldn't call it a glow up. It's more of a evil up.
But I think it also, and I'm gonna let Ethan keep going after I say this, but like it goes back to that.
Don't interrupt me.
I think it goes back to that message
that
the reason he ended up becoming evil is because he thought he was entitled. He thought because he had his powers that he deserved for life to be handed to him on a silver platter. And when that didn't happen, he threw a fucking hissy fit and became evil.
Yeah, I guess. But like, to me, first of all, it is unrealistic to think if you had powers like that, you would not be either extremely famous and rich or thrown into a lab for scientific research.
I mean, that's fair, because look at the people who aren't powerful, like the psychics that aren't powerful, like the bald dude with the black lips, and like they are pretty famous. Yeah, that's a good point.
So I'm just saying, like, that seemed like a weird angle to take for one of their characters. I know what they were trying to do is show like the great dichotomy between Mob's way of dealing with his insane powers and this guy's way of dealing with it. But that whole dream sequence in like the guy's head, I was not a fan of like basically anything that happened during that.
Really?
I thought so. Like for me, erasing Mob's memories and like his personality should be near impossible for anyone that isn't Daddy Suzuki.
And I think this might have been this guy's specific specialty. Like that's what he's good at, is making these.
I think that's complete headcanon.
Do you not think...
Well, it happened. I mean...
I'm just saying, like...
It's on screen. It happened.
I know. All I'm saying is I hate when anime, in general, they have, like, some ungodly powerful character, and they just, like, Deus Ex Machina into them being weak for one small period, right? Or, like, for instance... You make a Superman and his only weakness is freaking kryptonite. It's like, okay, right? I wonder if people are going to start using kryptonite against him.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just like, I think there's better ways of dealing with that. Like, I think they could have played on I think they could have done the same thing with leaving him with his memories. They could have just continued to, like, slowly over time, like basically make it a time compression situation, and like slowly over time just have people treat him like garbage.
I don't know though, because I would disagree with that, because I think what the message is when he gets his memories back, the only reason he doesn't like succumb to the pressure that Mogami's putting on him is because he remembers his connections. He remembers the people in his life that made his life bearable, and that's what gives him the strength to be grateful and to be better.
It's just that at that point he had grown so much since the beginning of season 1. It's hard for me to have a show basically erase all growth for a small period of time just to say, look how much he's grown. It's like, wow, congrats.
I actually kind of agree with you that segment. There's something in that segment I didn't agree with thinking about it now, and it's the logistical throughput of taking away his powers. So you're telling me that you're going to take away a kid's powers whose whole life goal right now is to grow without him? He's known nothing but trying to get better at life without the powers, so they were never a consequence to his main goal anyway. So why would be like, I'm going to take him away? Cool, I never wanted to use him in the first place.
Well, I disagree with that, because if he didn't have his powers when he was born, he would be like everyone else where he wanted them. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. Okay, so then there's the part of that of erasing his memories of ever having them in the first place.
Exactly.
So he was always there. So was his whole goal to make him want them?
I think his goal was, I'm going to put this kid in this position where he's beaten down, where he thinks the world is unfair. He doesn't have power, so he has no way to lash out. Once I give him his powers back, he will be driven to use them in an evil way, which will then consequently make him evil, basically.
So he's retroactively...
Okay, I saw it as this guy wants to overtake Mob's body.
No, he wants to...
I think that's what it was.
No, I think he wanted to just change his ideology.
Yeah.
No, because remember, he's going into like the soul realm or whatever, and they were literally fighting over...
No, because he even says when he gives him his powers, you are my disciple now. Like when Mob's getting his powers back, he's like, you now see the world the way I see it, you know? Like, he just wanted Mob to agree with him, basically. He couldn't stand to see someone with powers comparable to his that had a positive outlook on
He
life.
wanted a retroactive justification for his way of thinking through someone just as powerful as he is.
And if you remember...
I don't know, because that little ghost guy kept saying, like, if he doesn't come out, like, now, he's going to be lost in there, and the other guy's going to get his body and have his powers.
Dimple said that?
No,
Yeah.
I don't think he said that. And I just rewatched the season like 2 weeks ago, and like,
he's fresh.
And one thing I also remember that I had totally forgotten from the first time was Megami comes back briefly.
He does.
He comes back when the Beastmaster dude, he has him in the jar that he had captured him in. He comes out, he takes over the plants momentarily, and he almost kills the sidekick that controls the plants.
Right.
And Mob convinces him not to, and then Mogami's basically like, you need to like be harder on people. If you can do that, you will be unstoppable. And so I think in the end, Mob was actually able to sort of change Megami's outlook on life, but Megami was still trying.
Yeah.
But he was still trying to teach him like, you still need to be a little tougher. You know, like you can't always be this kind. You know.
And I think that came through in the end with Daddy Suzuki. He's like, I'm not strong enough to change you. I'm strong enough to destroy you, but I'm not strong enough to change you. So he went full hog and he just Kamehameha his face.
Well, and also when he flexes his powers for the first time, when he's like, y'all need to stay back, you can't handle this. He's like, that's another way he had interpreted
y'all
it.
actual fodder right now. So get the fuck away from me.
Yeah,
so.
but I think that just showed like growth in general for his confidence, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
And then,
definitely.
like-
and that he should appreciate his powers sometimes.
For what
you
they
know?
are.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
that and in this season, it really like puts Reigan in his place.
Oh, God,
Yes.
I love that
I
episode.
mean, Reigan was getting really freaking cocky.
Mm-hmm.
And
Basically,
he
little
finally-
bitch, just slapping him around
he
like,
finally
you do
goes-
what I say.
He finally goes, look, dude, I don't need you, right?
Yeah.
And so that he's like slowly learning to stick up for himself, and I think that's kind of where that specific scene you're talking about comes into play. Is like all these guys are like, oh, let's help him, and he's like, you're gonna get effed up.
Yeah.
Like, we're kind of up here and y'all are kind of down here, you know.
God, so brilliant.
So what else did you like about it? We keep interrupting you about how much we liked it.
What did you like about it?
Yeah, so I liked a couple of things. This is going pretty long, so I don't know if you want to do two or you want to.
No. This is we can do it one ep because we started.
Okay, great.
We'll make it a thick ep. We'll make it a thick episode.
Great. So, some things I really enjoyed about it. I like that they were going after, like, what's it called, like, local legends for a lot of
like
the episodes. Yeah, local myths.
Local legends.
And like they're slowly dispelling these like local myths and stuff. And then like the one with the grandma that's just running
in
really
the tunnel.
fucking fast. I was like, that is hilarious.
That's the one with the dog, where the dog's drawn, or the dog has
Yeah,
shit
yeah,
drawn
yeah,
on
yeah,
her face.
yeah.
Yes. Also great.
Yeah, so those were really funny, and I thought like they really added a lot of levity to a season that could have been very, very heavy.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Because I think you take those kinds of like, I guess, interludes away, and it's basically like you're coming straight off of season 1 where he has this massive fight. You already started this season like way in the swing of things, and then basically the real conflict starts. So I really like that they added that kind of like buffer, because it did feel, if that was not there, heavy.
You wouldn't have any breathing room.
Right.
It felt well placed, and that's why I always loved Dimple as a character. Every time he was involved, it was always a pretty good time. The time where he took over the big muscle bound dude. Well, awesome.
Yeah.
You can't beat this body that's been built. You built it with psychic powers. This man built it with iron. And I love that. Like you said, every time Dimple was involved, you knew for the most part, there was some lighthearted shit coming your way. So
Well, that, and it seems like he kind of has given up on his goal for taking Mob's body.
yes.
Like he obviously keeps saying like, "Oh, I'm gonna get you," but he seems to care for him a lot more than like you would expect an evil spirit to do. But so that was good. But I obviously I loved how Mob stood up to Reigan. That I think was obviously the crux of this season.
Yeah.
Was basically like,
It was like right in the middle of the season.
Yeah,
too.
and
you
I
needed
think
that to happen. Yeah.
it was definitely like the pendulum, or what do you call it, cantilever for the
I don't
season.
even know what that means.
I was gonna say, teach us.
And basically, that was great. But I did like, you remember the part where Mob's house is blown up and he comes back?
Yes.
I fucking loved the way they did that, because even as a viewer, I didn't know what the hell happened to his family, right?
Right as that episode ended, I thought he was gonna freak out.
So I knew he was gonna freak out, and I'm glad he did. But I was like, because I remembered that guy as being an evil dude, and then the way he talks to his little brother, I'm like, okay, he's actually a douchebag. This is a problem.
Yeah.
I was like, this is a big issue.
Yes.
And then
I wasn't seeing that coming at all.
Yeah, me either. And it turned out really well. So I like that they added like a different aspect to this season as well, where it was like more of a mystery type situation. Like they just had a lot of storylines moving at the same time, but it never felt like it was tangled too much. It never felt too bad. And that was like another main thing that I really liked about this season.
Yeah, and I like that they sort of took a page out of One Punch's book, where, especially in the latter half of the season, where they're focusing on these weaker characters fighting and struggling in these really dope, awesome fight scenes,
right?
And then Mob's just sort of slowly walking towards the scene, you know, like
and as he does it, just like ending fights in his wake.
Yeah,
and sometimes he didn't have to do anything to end the fight. He just is his presence alone. They're like, yeah, no, not him.
Yeah, I'm gonna dipset.
I'm gonna dipset. Bye. But favorite. Who's your favorite psychic that isn't Mob?
Wow, that's a good question.
Right. I actually really like Baby Suzuki, his son. And I liked him because he had a similar power set to his dad. He can stockpile power, and he tried to hit him with a blast that took him 3 months to build. And his dad's like, "Low, 20 years on deck." He can refract light, which is pretty cool. And he was kind of like the about face. So I thought he was basically an evangelist for his dad. But even his dad didn't give a shit about him. And at the whole time, he was like prepping to fight against his dad, even when we first met him. So I liked him a lot. He was kind of my 180 character, like, oh shit, he's actually pretty sweet now. So, and I liked his character design too, which is pretty cool. He's like a more rad version of his dad.
Yeah. No, I did, especially the twist they had with his character, because I was like you, Ethan, I thought like the whole time, like, oh, this is going to be a major antagonist, like, and then you realize, like, oh no, like he's actually sort of on par with Mob's brother in terms of power and like...
Yeah, with some special gifts, essentially.
So I had actually completely forgot that Mob's brother had any powers at all.
Ritsu at least is enough to hold his... Like, to be on the scene. But that's all he could do.
No clue. And I was like, whoa, he's got powers!
Yeah. and he doesn't... He gets very little airtime in this season in general. One character I came to love was Taruki. Like, yes. I loved him, especially... And my two favorite characters, other than Mob, were Taruki.
Who's Taruki?
He's the blonde guy who got thrown naked into the sky in the first season.
Okay, I like him too.
Yeah, like, came to love him. And sort of his, like, parallel in this season was...
I like the Umbrella guy as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, he was...
Umbrella guy was cool.
He was awesome.
He was a sweetheart. He just was a recluse, and he got fed sweet lies from... Daddy Suzuki, and it's just like, yeah, I'll protect him, and you shouldn't have, but
he thought he worked for a company.
Yeah.
he thought he was working to become CEO of a company.
Well, so like he is similar to Mob in that he is also socially completely inept. And the thing that was interesting is the first person that reached out to him was like the guy that he went with, essentially.
Yeah. So it could have been anybody.
So like this could very well have happened to Mob, I think, is what you're meant to feel.
That's a good... I didn't even
If it hadn't been Reigan, that's a really good point. I hadn't thought about that.
It could have been someone super shitty. Even if they're shady, at least Reigan is at least a good enough dude.
Well,
even at his worst.
Think definitely Reigan, but also if he didn't have Ritsu to like kind of bounce off of in a lot of ways, or like somebody to... Like, imagine Ritsu has no powers, right? And he's just way more alone. I think that easily could be Mob, you know?
That's a good point.
But, you know, growing up with somebody also force sensitive, I think that helped Mob in a lot of ways. But I did like, I don't know if you guys noticed this, but the way they would tent people when they were using their powers, like with like some effect, like purple and...
It was kaleidoscopy.
Yeah,
it was cool.
Yeah.
For the two that were related... It was always a very similar type of kaleidoscope.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then for Sho and his daddy, they were very similar.
It was like tech patterns.
I hadn't thought about that.
I like that because at first I was like, oh shit, he does have powers.
Yeah.
And they're similar to Mob's.
That's cool. That's a good point. Who's the mind's eye teleportation guy?
Okay, and that was what I was going to say. Him and Taruki, I feel like he sort of took Taruki's place, whereas Taruki thought he was the protagonist last season. This guy was like, I'm the second strongest. And then Taruki laughs at that. He's like, bro,
dude,
you have no idea.
His line, I'm a nobody. I'm a commoner, and I can beat you.
And I can beat you.
So what does that make you? Like, what are you then at that regard?
And that guy's name was Ryu Shimazaki.
Shimazaki,
and I liked him for that reason, and also just like, the fight scenes with him were my favorites. Like the way he jumps around, the way they animated those scenes were so dope.
The background's teleporting instead of him. Like, just basically one fluid motion of
when
beating
he's
his
slamming
head.
his head, like, that's one of my favorite shots.
New location, baby. That
he's
was
like, I'm taking you out, bye.
Peace. But yeah, I did like Tsurugi. I think, honestly, just for a character development standpoint, because he was the one single person, I think, that fully embraced Mob's philosophy.
Oh, yeah.
Like, at the end of the day, just like, and he felt peace in it, which is great. And then he basically, and that allowed him to laugh at others. And he did get stronger. Like, he was shockingly talented. He learned pyrokinesis, multiple barriers at once, with that weird whip thing that I don't think he ever used again. But he was surprisingly talented.
Yeah.
Just overshadowed by Mob. Everyone
yeah,
was.
I think someone we're definitely forgetting, or just not yet too, is Reigan's development in this season.
Yeah.
Because I think this was one of the major things that I loved about this season was basically him going on that psychic show and basically being proven that he's a complete fraudo. And then Mob, bailing him out later. But just like him having to live with that and like him thinking about like, oh, what should I do now? Should I be like a truck driver?
Yeah.
Like it was a very, it felt very much like GTO, if you remember.
Yes.
When he basically thinks he's expelled from teaching. He's like, what the hell should I do? And he literally starts being a truck driver. But I always kind of viewed those two characters as very similar.
Really?
Reigan and Onizuka.
Yes. Yeah.
In that they're both badass, like bad guys. Like not genuinely good dudes. But they also can do very good things for their students.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So like I think those are some of the interesting characters I think in all of anime and basically media in general. Are the flawed, bad people who can still do a lot of good.
Yeah.
Senseis in the grays. I get it. They're not great.
Oh no.
Oh yes. Senseis in the grays. They're not they're anti-senseis. They're not perfect like pinnacle of teaching.
I'd say they're definitely anti-heroes.
Anti-heroes
Yeah.
that are teaching young folk.
And Reigan does toe a really cool line, and like I do think that at his core, and I think this is what Mob sees, he is a good person, and that shines through in moments. And you know, and that's when you see like his original conversation with Mob and some moments in this season, it's like you see like, oh shit, like no, this guy deep down, like he has some stuff figured out and he really is good. But I think he's another example of how the pressures of society and having a self-inflated ego and wanting to leave a mark on the world can make you sort of a fucked up person in the end. You know?
There's that whole stretch of without Mob, he basically tries to do just that. Like he tries to find his way the only way he knows how, which is basically conning the shit out of people for their own good.
And I think he's also convinced himself that he is a shitty person, and it takes Mob saying you're a really good guy for him to even like consider that's a possibility. You know,
and he kind of made peace with that. And like, how do I profit off being shitty? Well, at least let's do that, right? But yeah, so. Probably in terms of character development, he might take the cake for this season, even above Mob. I think Mob.
It was also just funny as shit. Like Mob and him split ways, and then he just gets like insanely famous online.
On his own.
And so like it was like the show was basically saying we're gonna reward you for being a dickbag. So and then like for him to fall so heavily after that and realize like Mob saved my ass. Like, it was just the perfect, like, swing, because I was like, they're really rewarding this man. I was like, he's about to be so famous.
It's also funny because he's like, why did I even become a sidekick?
Yeah, why did I do this?
Why did I do this in the first place?
He's like, oh, yeah.
So, you know what? Final thoughts. Where would you say the show, like, this season, just this season?
Sorry, before that, I don't want to end it just yet.
Don't interrupt me.
Did you watch the thing after the season with them in the snow?
The OVA?
There was like a Christmas special right
I actually
after.
did not know.
Oh, shit.
I did not watch that.
All right, check it out. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good? Okay. Will do. Kids at home, if you haven't watched that yet, give it a shot. So,
definitely.
Yeah, season 2 as a whole. I think it made season 1 feel more like a showcase than a story. Because it felt kind of showcasey of what a character like Mob can do in a world like this. Whereas season 2 felt, proper story, tighter arc than season 1. It just felt more holistically better. Just felt holistically enjoyable to watch. I
think that the reason I hold this show in really high regard, because I would say it's in like my top anime period right now.
Okay.
And I think part of the reason is because I watched it at a time in my life where my like beliefs were starting to really align with the message it's saying, which is that like.
So you were converging with it.
Yeah, it's like this whole idea that like the only
unbelievable
reason.
power is the only thing.
Finally, someone gets me.
But like I was starting to come into this belief that like connection's the only thing that really matters in life. You know,
Right.
like our connections with other people, and so. I think to have that belief reinforced by this show just made me like fall in love with it.
What about cash?
What about that cash and slaying and laying, getting girls, my dude?
Fuck you guys.
I'm just saying, you can't do a whole lot of connecting without cash.
It did have a message that I wasn't expecting to hit as close to home as it did after season 1. That came out of left field for me. That's why I was already like, after the first couple episodes, okay, I see you
and
coming
like,
out here with an actual message to
and
give.
And there's the last episode where he stays with that.
Okay.
Where he stays with Daddy Suzuki to absorb the explosion. He has this line that calls back to season 1 where he says, "I am the protagonist of my own life," and it goes back to when Reigan said, "You are the main character of your own life." And basically he says that like even though I hate you, like I disdain everything you stand for. He's like, it is sadder to see you die alone, and like I choose to be with you in spite of that. And like that's a message I fucking get down with. It's like people drive me nuts and piss me off, but like I still think like you have to take a step back and try to be the better person and be there for them in spite of that.
Yeah. And I think you recognized that I'm the protagonist of my own life. I have the power to make the choice. Exactly. So what choice do I want to make? That's up to me and me alone. I know I hate you, but I made my choice because this is my story. Which is great. I mean, and Ethan.
Well, I think Reigan is a very interesting character, like outside of that message, in that he kind of shows the audience that you can be flawed in a lot of ways, but you can still tell the right things. Like I think in a lot of like specifically that line you just mentioned, he's given Mob a lot of like granules of like very, very sound, good advice.
Yeah. While
still being an asshole.
Yeah.
And I think in a lot of ways I relate to that because. Well, like, I can say how to do things perfectly. It's just harder to do them yourself. And I think he's like the main, poster board for that. Right. It's like he knows what you should be doing. He's just not always able to, like, fully fulfill that.
Bring himself to do it.
So. I hadn't even thought about that, but you're so right. Because, like, Mob... Like, God,
what about this do you not understand?
I need to stop saying this, damn it. Mob is the ideal. Mob is the perfect ideal that none of us can reach. None of us can be Mob, both in terms of his power and his ideology. Reigan is the character that we as viewers can relate to most because we're imperfect, we're flawed. We can't always deliver on our own advice as well as we would like to, but we can still... Sometimes we can live up to our own expectations, and that's a beautiful message.
Yeah, I'm into it. So I give this show a hearty 93 out of 100 broccolis. How about y'all? We do a out of 100 rating system here on Weebology.
I do not like that.
Too bad. Too bad.
Yeah, we don't let you cop out with the 0 to 10s anime summit.
Oh, that's a call out, my dude.
Nah, we're fans.
So out of 100, where are we at?
88 to 90 potentially.
Interesting.
Psychic children out of 100.
And you thought broccoli was bad. Jesus Christ. Psychic children.
I would give this...
Psychos?
Worse.
I would give this 90...
Beans!
No.
I didn't say it. They came back without me doing it.
96 out of 100 tomato plants.
Nice.
I really love this show.
Sounds like it.
But y'all, thank you so much for listening. YouTube gang, thank you very much for watching. Cody, thank you very much for being here with us in the lab.
This was so much fun. Thank you for having me.
Dude, anytime you want to come back, you watch a show that we've watched, like, you want to talk about it on mic? We'll have you back anytime.
Isn't it fun to talk about anime on a podcast?
Dude, I could do it all fucking day.
But so like, comment, and subscribe on YouTube if you liked it with your eye and earballs. If you just want exclusive earball content, you can see us on... Actually, not see us. You can hear us on Apple, Google, Spotify, Stitcher, CastBox, and a couple more.
Pocket Casts.
And
many more.
Drop us a line in our email if you had a suggestion for an anime or a show topic. What's our email, Ethan?
Our email is Weebology podcast weebology@gmail.com.
Go check us out on Instagram at weebology.podcast. We got memes on news. We're switching up memes and news for y'all, so you stay up to date in anime and the meme culture.
And our Twitter is at WeebologyP.
We do have one of those
I still
now.
have not figured out how to rectify that.
Cody, do you have anything to plug?
No, I hate social media.
Awesome, cool.
Y'all, I gotta say that y'all plug it like profs. Like, y'all
thank you.
fucking very good.
Genuinely appreciate
If you
that.
want to follow me on Instagram, you'll see like one post a year. So like,
Whoa,
you
but that
know?
one post, absolute banger.
Oh, guys, yeah, it's fucking flame.
You didn't say what your Instagram was?
It's at Cody Lee Edgar.
Okay, there we go.
So Ethan, I think they got a little learnt.
Yes, and the broccoli was a little burnt.
And I think Cody just got a little turned. So,
Yeah.
Yep. I'm Ricky.
And I need it.
And that's Cody. And this has been Weebology. Deuces.
Deuces.
Pieces. Hey, I said beans.
Let's say
not
bye.
last.
Bye.
There we go.
Ethan said beans last. I didn't say it.